I have heard very little information coming out of East Palestine.
Well, a story that really caught my attention earlier this week, a train transporting combustible material was derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, late last week. Now, residents within a 2-mile radius were forced to evacuate as authorities carried out what was referred to as a controlled release of vinyl chloride from 5 train cars in order to prevent an explosion. Although, if you take a look at this video, it's pretty clear that it looks to be a bit of an explosion. And what's even worse—
No, it was a controlled demolition because they didn't want it to happen without. I think that part is normal. What's not normal, on the other hand, is like, because the derailment happened, those chemicals still absolutely spilled over. And I think that controlled or not controlled, they're probably undermining the environmental impact that this is having.
Talking about vinyl chloride, it's a chemical that's used to make car parts and PVC piping, but it's also linked to multiple cancers, and it can be deadly if breathed in for too long.
What happened was the National Transportation Safety Board told the regulatory agency, said, listen, these regulations should broadly cover not just oil, they should cover what's known as Class 2 chemicals, which include, again, vinyl chloride. And the chemical industry lobbyists went to work pressuring the regulatory agency to limit the definition of what a high hazard flammable train is.
Animals are dying in the region. I know we're going to get to that in a second. What I want to cover first is who's at fault, obviously. Right now, we don't fully know, okay? I mean, but everyone kind of has an understanding of who's at fault. It's, of course, the rail companies that lobbied against safety regulations, that actively tried to stop, the many different instances where the workers' unions were saying we need more safety regulations, we need more employees, we need more workers to be hired. And I also have the footage of the fiery axle 20 miles before East Palestine train derailment.
The same company that pushed to repeal this rule was a company that was touting these brakes in prior years before that. They were saying these brakes are so good, we shouldn't necessarily have to follow other stricter safety rules because this new brake technology that we like can be used and can improve our safety. They didn't want a requirement for this. And look, they made the argument that the costs outweighed the benefits. And what they were, in granular detail, what they were saying was the costs to put these brakes on will raise costs for goods across the country.
Oh man, we just can't do it, brother. There's no way. Meanwhile, they got billions of dollars in liquid fucking cash that they're utilizing for stock buybacks. So it's just an absolute fucking lie, straight up lie, okay? Complete lie. Here's the investigation from Lever News from David Sirota. He says before his derailment, Norfolk Southern helped kill a rule to require better braking systems. As he talked about, lobbyists also convinced regulators to ignore the NTSB and exempt such trains from being strictly regulated as high hazard flammable trains. The article was written 2 years ago. My coworkers and I have been trying to tell anyone who would listen to what would happen. This was an article on Vice from March 22nd, 2021. It's going to end up like Boeing, how freight rail is courting catastrophe. Workers are sounding the alarm, and drastic cuts in employees and maintenance in order to increase profits are tempting fate. 2 years ago, they wrote this article. Just before 5 a.m. on August 2nd, 2017, Alice Murray was fast asleep when her entire house shook, almost as if a freight train had crashed into the block, she told the Cumberland Times News. That's exactly what happened. But that's not the last time, nor was it the first time that people have actually complained about this. Here, back in December, a union rail worker warned about the potential for a catastrophic train derailment. Then a week ago, it happened in Ohio.
Rail workers warned us about disaster like this. I heard firsthand months ago about the corporate practice of precision scheduled railroading.
Precision scheduled railroading is shorter staff, longer hours, longer trains, less safety, less maintenance. Do I have all that right?
Oh, you got it all right. I
Okay.
mean, a lot of the derailments that you're seeing on national TV is one of a few things. It's lack of maintenance on the track, or they've cut the track gangs too short and they can't get out to fix it, or they've cut the carmen's, which is the union that works on the rail cars. So we have one derailment here in Northeast Ohio where a wheel flange was very thin. It picked a switch and derailed the entire train. Luckily, it was full of candle wax and not something highly volatile.
Rail workers tried to strike over this stuff, but were stopped by Congress. A few weeks later, and here we are. Several Norfolk
When you want to understand why the fuck mainstream news is not covering a mini Chernobyl that occurred in fucking East Palestine, Ohio, understand that this is part of the reason. Because mainstream news is liberal. Let's be real. Liberal not in the sense that they like defend the Democratic Party over like, you know, gender bills or whatever, which they clearly don't, by the way. They don't even fucking talk about all of the insane amounts of anti-trans legislation that's passing all around the country. But liberal in the sense that they're anti-union, liberal in the sense that they are beholden to capitalists and the interests of capital owners. If you talk about a massive train derailment that possibly has long-standing consequences, like health complications that are going to occur as a consequence of this, animals fucking dying in this region, people that will get cancer because of the carcinogens that are now all over the air that they breathe. If you talk about all that, immediately after the railroad unions collectively said this is going to happen weeks prior and Joe Biden fucking shut that shit down, all of a sudden, things look a little bit different. Wow, if only Biden didn't personally intervene with the rail strikes. I mean, that literally did happen. Yes, that is exactly what happened. Most pro-union president in the history, right?
20 miles from where I grew up. So I met Clyde in East Palestine to ask him about it.
It looks like a faulty bearing caused a catastrophic derailment. These railroads are turning profits hand over fist. They've cut their workforce to bare bones. Carmen were inspecting cars about 3 minutes per car. That's always been the industry standard. Now it's 90 seconds per car.
Is that because of PSR?
Yes, it's a rush job right now. And these guys are under pressure. I mean, they're working men and women. And, you know, if they don't hurry up and get this car done, they're going to be fired.
Profit at any cost. A disaster like this is simply a cost of doing business. They cut everything, make all the money, and pay off disasters in tiny flyover towns from the profit. But instead of answering for any of that.
Oh, speaking of the payout, you want to see the payout? You want to see the fucking fuck you money that they gave to the town? They gave $25,000. Residents of East Palestine, Ohio aren't even sure if their town is safe. They're extremely troubled by dead fish in the local stream and dead chickens found in a neighboring town. But guess what, guys? Don't worry. Norfolk Southern has got your back. $25,000 to an Ohio town where it caused a life or death evacuation. Remember, the local news at the time was reporting if you are in this area, if you're in the area of the smoke cloud, it's danger, grave danger to life. They evacuated the entire town. A couple days later, they're like, come on, you can come back in. It's all good. But fear not, 25 grand, baby. You're good. On February 6th, an apocalyptic plume of gas rose over the village of East Palestine, Ohio, blotting out the sky. Norfolk Southern, the U.S. railway company responsible for the toxic spew of vinyl chloride, has now offered a $25,000 donation to assist the area's nearly 5,000 residents who were ordered to evacuate their homes or face death. Hey, man, $5 to pop. You might have birth defects. You might just get cancer 10 years down the line. But guess what? You also got $5. Think about that. Think about the $5 that you got when you get cancer, 10 years later. We have established a family assistance center to address the needs of the community and support those directly impacted, Norfolk Southern said in a statement. It remains unclear what exactly the center is doing to assist displaced residents. Norfolk Southern has a history of lobbying against safety regulations. Shocking. The publicly traded company, which has a market value of $55 billion, fought the Federal Railroad Administration's push to upgrade the Civil War era brake system that remains widely used in American trains and against stricter rules on the transport of hazardous materials. Meanwhile, its employees still lack guaranteed sick leave. Thank you, Joe Brandon, by the way. You are my best friend. You are the one who allowed this to continue. There is a very solid chance Norfolk Southern knew there was a hot axle on this train miles before it derailed, but ordered the crew to keep moving because stopping to inspect or set out the car would delay other trains. It will be interesting to see if NTSB is able to recover radio traffic and readouts from the defect detectors along the route. Bro, remember how they covered Chernobyl? Remember how HBO Chernobyl, we were talking about the USSR is so bad, the USSR is so bad. 9 Röntgen, not good, not great, right? Bro, this is the same shit. Breaking after the Ohio derailment, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg has no plans to reinstate Obama's brake rule, despite a warning to Congress that without it, there will be more derailments. Buttigieg's Department of Transportation is now considering a proposal that may weaken safety rules, actually. Guys, what the American citizens would truly benefit from? Less regulation, which would create more derailments. because derailments are fun, you know? It's like a fun little activity. When toxic carcinogens basically enter the airwaves and also your water supply, it's like a fun thing. It's like an additional thing that you have to survive through. And everybody likes playing Fallout. A lot of people like playing that game, the video game Fallout. Why don't you want to live in Fallout world in the real world? I don't understand. You should be thanking me for creating this environment for you to enjoy. Safety concerns have also grown amid Norfolk Southern's implementation of precision scheduled railroading and operations policy criticizes a corporate money grab to cut costs. Companies slash jobs more than a fifth since 2017. Meanwhile, the unions were literally like, bro, you need to hire more people. You need to hire more people. They're like, why would we hire more people when we can get 4/5 of the same workforce to cover the same amount of work? I don't understand. That's called efficiency. You're being stupid. Well, guess what? This is what happens when you look for efficiency. But of course, here's the thing. Why should any capitalist corporation not do this? If the government is very openly defending them, if the government is very openly allowing them to do this, if no executive is like even expected to go to jail for this, why should they do anything? Why? There's no legislation. There's no one forcing their hand. Why should they do this? When they can get away with throwing 25 grand, which is like honestly worse than not giving them any money, straight up. Giving the town that they have potentially eviscerated $25,000 of fuck you money seems worse than not giving them any money at all. It's literally like an insult. It's like, here, take this shit, fuck off. It's like when, police unions or cities give payouts to like victims of police brutality. Like they did this in Florida where they gave the family $4 or something for each of the children that saw their father get murdered in their own home by a cop. And then the city paid them out, I think, 25 cents a person or something, or either $4 or $1. That's a real story, by the way. That happened like in 2017. Anyway, on top of that, to make matters worse, ignoring concerns that understaffing could impact railway safety, which is what they did, they also initiated a $10 billion stock buyback program. Millions of dollars in corporate lobbying and poor regulations have created the perfect storm, according to Railroad Workers United, a cross-union rail workers caucus. The wreck of Train 32N has been years in the making. What other such train wrecks await us remain to be seen, RWU said in a press release. Oh, here, a man was shot and killed by the police. A jury gave his family $4. Nasty shit. Gregory Hill Jr. In 2014, I covered this. This is an old story that I covered way back in the day. Anyway, here is the Ohio news reporter, the local news reporter who got arrested. Body cam footage showing members of law enforcement and a top official in the Ohio National Guard confronting News Nation reporter Evan Lambert provides a different account than what the East Palestine PD released in a statement. Lambert was reportedly told his live shot discussing a train derailment was too loud while Governor Mike DeWine spoke to reporters. DeWine said he vehemently disapproved of Lambert's arrest.
You want me to file charges on you right now? Go ahead. I am allowed to be here. Did you not see that man put his hands on? Shut it down. You continued on. Go. Now. Go. Now.
Or you can go to jail. Sir. You want to go to jail for criminal trespassing? Do you want to go to jail for criminal trespassing? Do you understand?
You know how quickly our lawyers will get me out?
I don't care.
Sorry, can we
I don't care.
Let's talk outside.
Go.
Let's talk outside. Come on, outside. Come on. Out the door. Out the door. By other media right here. I'm going to listen.
I don't care. You're going to walk out the door.
I'm going to listen.
You're going to walk out the door.
Do not touch me.
Sir, can we talk outside, please?
I am trying to
talk
listen.
outside, please.
And he escalated with me. I am doing my job.
I wonder why he got arrested. Silly goose. Don't you know it's illegal when a cop decides that you're not supposed to be in a place or wants to be a fucking petty bitch? Don't you know it's illegal to talk back to them? Especially talking back while being black? That's an aggravating charge, okay? I'm just letting you know.
This is covered by the First Amendment.
Excuse me, sir. I'm the building supervisor here. Please leave.
There you have it.
You're going to stand outside.
Or you're going to jail.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Come on. Out.
You're under arrest. I'm under arrest. Excuse me, sir. Oh, sir.
Oh my God! You guys, this is bad. Stop.
I am on the ground. What are you trying to do? Okay,
Stop resisting. Stop
You are
this.
under arrest.
Oh my God. Stop. You should work fucking get this. This is so bad.
Put your leg behind your back. Lay flat. Lay flat, please.
You guys, he's a national correspondent. You cannot do this.
I'm on board with News Nation. It's all being recorded right now.
I hope it is.
That's great stuff.
Because
Good
you
stuff.
can't talk to people about doing their jobs. This is what it's like to be a black reporter in
And then I'm
2023.
so
Good job, guys. You did it. You fucking did it. Good job.
Putting these brakes on the trains that would be required to have them would cost a total of $3 billion. Now, that's about 2 weeks of operating revenue that the train system pulls in. 2 weeks of revenue in a single year, meaning it's a tiny amount of money when you're talking about the entire rail industry, but they didn't want to spend it. Now, look, Trump repealed the rule. The Obama administration originally created the rule. I mean, this is a regulatory kind of rule that transportation
Pete Buttigieg already said that he's not interested in this. Now, of course, part of the reason why Pete or Joe Biden or anyone doesn't even feel the need to address this or talk about it is because the media is not covering it. There is not enough anger. East Palestine is a tiny ass fucking town with 5,000 people in it, and nobody really gives a shit. This will continue happening over and over and over again, just like the railway unions said it would. It's just gonna happen to a larger town, gonna happen to a more populated area. It's just about assessing the risks in that situation. It's basically about like how much of a stink can we make? How much damage can we get away with? Especially when the media doesn't fucking talk about it. That's the reason why they don't give a shit. That's the reason why the Brandon administration is not doing anything as well.
Because what I'm worried about is, and I'm not just blaming the press here, that every part of this has broken down. The press does not hold the corporations accountable, does not hold the politicians accountable. Then the politicians go, well, I'm gonna get $6 million, the Republican Party is here, from these guys. I'm gonna get nothing from the other side. And there's no downsides. There's no one telling people that I'm a monster who's in favor of giant fireballs in their neighborhood because I got bribed, right? No.
The media is a very important component of this because they're the ones who are supposed to tie all of this together. And when they don't do that, the dude in Ohio doesn't fully understand who to get mad at, so he continues to get mad at like fucking, I don't know, gender neutral bathrooms or whatever the fuck. That's an issue. That's a major issue. Very, very frustrating. Not as frustrating as the top of the hour ad break, which everyone in that town of Ohio will be able to avoid if they use their $5 that they got. I don't think Norfolk Southern actually took like a serious hit in the stock market. It's by design. They know that these cost-cutting initiatives could potentially cause these massive disasters, but ultimately you just throw 25 grand at the victims and move on, knowing full well that the media is not really going to cover it, knowing full well that the government is not going to come seeking answers. Literally, there are people in every corporation that's doing this in actuarial sciences. They're doing this kind of risk mitigation. What is your life worth to them? And what happens if there's an environmental disaster? In this circumstance, it's wonderful because, again, it's a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo science, and science is confusing, especially when no one is covering it. And who knows what the long-term impact could be? You could just lie about it and then, deal with it 10 years, 20 years down the line, especially if no one is really asking questions. So there might come a time and place, 10 years, 20 years down the line when they're like, why the fuck is everybody getting cancer in this town? It's so weird. Why the fuck can you not grow any crops here? And then maybe the company will be forced to pay a fine. That's if you're lucky. Look at these workers just walking right next to the train cars. Yeah. People with personal chickens in East Palestine are all reporting all their chickens are suddenly deceased.